Oh, beautiful souls, and welcome to this episode of Lorrie Rivers Holistic Healing with Lorrie, actually, is what we're calling it. So, here in the US, it is delightfully cold, actually, in South Kakalaka, where I live. And I say delightfully because it's almost Thanksgiving here. I think we're releasing this episode actually the day before Thanksgiving. And so it's really nice when it is cold here because typically in South Carolina at this time of year, it can be really warm actually. So it's fun to have that, hence the hat for today. But what we're going to be talking about today is how you can make conscientious food choices for yourself during the holidays. Because, oh my gosh, there are so many sweet things and glutaginous things and other things that might not be the most supportive things for you to be consuming, right? Now, we have a couple of caveats here. First of all, I want to share a quick story with you about a current heal student, and we do have a heal eating plan, and there are different layers to it. So, you know, your way that you implement the eating plan is going to be different from somebody else. It just depends on what you're dealing with. But we do like to do a few things that you are, and not do a few things that you're probably already familiar with. So, this particular student, within the first couple of weeks, she was having some trouble sticking to the eating plan, which, by the way, we don't expect you. First of all, I'm not the food police, right? This is your choice. And again, it's about making these conscientious, supportive decisions about what you're consuming, what you're putting in your mouth, and what are your goals. We don't focus on weight loss because that's not the point. We're focusing on healthy eating to support your gut, to support the terrain of the body, to support your liver, all those things. So, anyway, within the first few weeks, during one of our group coaching sessions, she said, please just beat me up so that I will eat the right things. Which, oh my gosh, I think we all have done that. I know that I have for sure. The majority of my life, that's the way that I approached it. But what we do and what I teach is to give yourself a lot of grace and to understand that you are most likely gonna be having a lot of cravings, right? So we give ourselves grace and we ease into the heal eating plan. Some people just jump into it, but a lot of people ease into it. And we go into how to do that in the program. But with this holiday food approach, I hope that you will have this same mindset, which is to give yourself a lot of grace, right? Now, one of the things that I find is super helpful to keep yourself on track with making smart food choices during the holidays is to create a plan for yourself. So, you know, if you do decide that you're going to allow yourself to have, a bite or two of pie or whatever, then I would say actually write it down. So that's your first strategy there, is to actually write down the concessions that you might be making for yourself, right? The second strategy is to take some healthy snacks with you, right? Let's go over some of the basics of healthy, supportive foods. This means no refined sugars. It means as little gluten as possible. Corn can be super problematic for a lot of people. And uh, as few processed foods as possible, right? So if you can stick to your turkey and even drizzle some olive oil on it instead of the gravy. Now, I freaking love gravy. I miss gravy. That's one of the few things that I do miss, actually. But you can still get some of that satiation, right? From some really nice olive oil and drizzling that on top of your turkey. As far as for dressing, it gets a little tricky there. Now, I have made some actually carnivore dressing, which was interesting and not super tasty. I'm sure that I could have tweaked it and, gotten really good at it or whatever. But the dressing might be one of those things that you just allow yourself to have a bite of. And of course, all of this depends on where you are as far as your health is concerned. If you have a lot of digestive issues and you know that this is going to set you back for a week, if you have one bite of something with gluten in it, then, give yourself permission to not do that and maybe have something else instead. Um, yeah, so then we come to the desserts. And this is one of those places where, again, if you choose to, so I'll give you an example. I was at a wedding a couple of years ago and I got into a pretty good place in my health journey. And they had these really delicious looking cake. They weren't cake pops, but without the pop part of it, but they were these little cake bites. And I had told myself, I had made a plan and said, okay, I am going to allow myself to have one bite of two different desserts. And so I did that. And I could tell a difference. It was like, okay, that tasted really fun, but I could tell a difference in how it affected me physically. Not huge, but a little bit. Now, again, it depends on where you are in your process. If you know that taking one bite of something sweet is going to send you into crazy cravings, which many years ago for me, it would have done that. It totally would have. I think many of you have heard my story about when I had to live with my dad. And I was so super sick, and he had to hide anything that was sweet. And even though I could barely most days, a lot of days I couldn't even get myself up and down the stairs. But on the days that I could, if I was having crazy cravings, it felt uncontrollable. And I would go and climb up on counters and find the sweets and eat them all and then be laid out for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Now, that's not going to be the case for everybody, right? It's not about willpower. It depends on the amount of dysbiosis that's in your body at this point. So if you have a shnikey ton of parasites in there or shnikey ton of fungus and a lot of dysbiosis of things that thrive on sugar and that's what they eat, then one bite of something or one sip of something is going to be super difficult. I definitely recommend sticking with water and tea, right? Alcohol is just going to it's going to set you back in a lot of different ways, right? It is so tough on the body in so many different ways. It's like sending an IV to any parasites and fungus and candida and Lyme, and they all eat sugar, right? And so that's just like sending that it's like saying, here you go. Let you thrive some more, right? And it's also really hard on your liver. So even just a small amount, I would say just know that this is temporary, right? That you will be able to, in the future, couple years down the road, if you stick with your treating and getting things back into balance, that you will be able to have a glass of wine here and there, or whatever it is that you want. Or you might choose just not to. So, yeah. And again, I want to bring it in that if you do slip up or do something that you wish you hadn't, let it be okay. Give yourself a lot of grace. We have some tapping meditations that you can do, and I bet you can find some online as well if you Google tapping on food cravings or whatever, EFT tapping. So that's a super powerful tool as well. The other thing to bring into your strategies is to be present with your food and with what you're putting into your mouth. Now, this can be especially challenging when you're with other people. So there's this wonderful social aspect of Thanksgiving and Christmas and Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and all these other wonderful holidays. But we also want to be paying attention to what we're putting in our mouth. And there's also many times a stressful component to being around family. Or if you're not around family, right? If you're alone or if you're with friends even, right? There can be a stressful component to that. So I do recommend doing some tapping before you sit down to eat. This is going to get your nervous system into a more parasympathetic state, which is your rest, digest, and heal state. So it's going to make it easier for you to interact with other people, but it's also going to give your body that state that it wants and needs to be able to digest your food and to use it more effectively. So maybe you just go to the bathroom and sit down and just do some tapping, some EFT tapping before you sit down to eat. So those are some, I think, very doable strategies, right? First of all, is to plan what you are and aren't going to eat. Secondly, to take some things along with you that make you feel a little less deprived, right? So maybe if you tolerate fruit, which not everybody does, depending again on where you are in your healing journey and what you're dealing with. So maybe for dessert, you take some blueberries with you. Um, and maybe as a special drink for yourself, instead of alcohol, you take some fizzy water and put a teeny tiny little bit of pomegranate juice in there or something so that it's festive. And then also doing some tapping before you actually eat so that you are fully present while you're eating and paying attention to what it tastes like, right? Enjoying your food. And then what I also wanted to tell you about today is we have it's actually a tapping for stress-free holidays workshop series. It's 2 workshops. You get both of them for the $10. And then if that's something that really helps you out, so we tap on being around certain family members, we tap on the stress of getting everything ready, we tap on really anything that might come up, right? So we already had one, but you'll get the replay for that. And the next one is on, I think it's December 10th. So we'll have that in the sign up, in the link in the description for this episode. And then also we have our actual tapping for stress-free holidays full tapping course, which I think is like 4 or 5 hour-long sessions. And those are pre-recorded, so you can access that. And again, we go through anything and everything that you might run into. So check those out. Please share this with family, a friend who you think it would help out. Even if you're just trying to watch your weight or something like that, then this is going to be super helpful. But we focus mainly on your health, right? Your health and your well being. And I know that the holidays can sometimes take people off track. So we want to be course correcting all along the way here. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Holistic Healing with Lori, and I'll see you next time.